Well, welcome everyone to Diamond's webinar series. Today we'll be speaking about accessibility in the workplace for the deaf-blind. I'd like to introduce Joe Devin, who's the co-founder of Diamond, as well as the co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Joe, welcome, and if you could please introduce yourself and the panel to get started.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm Joe Devin. And as Natasha said, I'm co-founder of GAD as well as Diamond, an inclusive digital agency. I'm 53 years old, 5'9", and have graying hair, even though I ask the barber to cut only the gray hairs, but unfortunately it doesn't work. So I would like to make everybody notice that on the bottom there is a Q&A button, and as you see the panel and the presenter speak, if you have questions, please ask the question in the Q&A and we will call on you as the webinar progresses. We're so pleased to collaborate with Layla and the Helen Keller National Center. We recently worked with them to bring on Elias, an intern, that they have provided, and we highly recommend that everyone do connect up with the Helen Keller Center because this is a wonderful program and you're going to learn more about it today. So to begin, I would like to introduce Chris Woodfill, the Associate Executive Director of Helen Keller National Center, to give an introduction into deaf-blindness. Chris.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joe, for the wonderful and warm introduction to today's webinar. I'm going to briefly give a short description of myself. I am in the deaf-blind community. I work at Helen Keller National Center. I am deaf-blind myself. I have Usher's syndrome. And I've worked with HKNC for 8 years in a variety of different roles. As Associate Executive Director I'm now Associate Executive Director for the entire agency. I'm going to talk a little bit about the deaf-blind community now. First thing that you need to remember about the deaf-blind community there is no one person that can describe the deaf-blind community. I am not a representative for the entire deaf-blind community, being a deaf-blind person. Another deaf-blind person is not a representative for the deaf-blind community because the deaf-blind community itself is very diverse. So there's not really one definition for the deaf-blind community. And we'll go into more detail about the deaf-blind community as well. There are federal definitions that define a person as deaf-blind, and simply stating there are 3 things. You have a hearing loss, that impacts your everyday communication and your accessibility to the world. The second thing is you have a vision loss. So first thing is hearing loss, second is a vision loss. It's either 2200 or worse vision loss. And it must be up to 20 degrees of visual field in your best eye. It is in either one or the other eye, either 2200 or 20 degrees of loss in your best eye. That means you're blind. And the third thing So it's lots of reasons that are hard to measure as well. So functionality, and that's if you're deaf and blind. So really, there's a variety of things. Again, there's a lot of diversity in the community. For me, I was born deaf, and I found that I had Usher syndrome when I was older, and my vision started to tunnel in. And that's one example of how a person would be part of the deafblind community. Some other people who are deafblind may start out blind and then have a hearing loss. So it could be two different people who are both deafblind who are very different. Some people are born hearing and sighted, and they can hear fine, they can see fine, and they become deafblind for a variety of reasons, maybe from a trauma or something else happens. They have an illness and then they later become deafblind. So those are the three different ways to become a deafblind individual. The deafblind community includes people who are senior citizens. So they're deaf and blind due to their age. And that's a high percentage of senior citizens who are now deafblind. So there's a wide variety of differences in our community. There's different ranges of hearing loss. You could be from hard of hearing to profoundly deaf. You could be from low vision to completely blind. And then you mix that all together, and that is what makes up the deafblind community. Etiology of deafblindness, there's a lot of different etiologies as well. A high percentage of people who are deafblind due to Usher syndrome. Yes, that's very true. There's also a large percentage that are from who are deafblind because of charge syndrome. There's a large percentage that are age-related deafblindness. And plus, there's a plethora of other reasons that a person can become deafblind as well. So that's a basic explanation of it. At Helen Keller National Center, people want to know what that is, historically what it is. It does come from, there's federally funded. It's a federally funded national center. We do provide vocational rehab services for people all over the country who are experiencing vision and hearing loss. And that's what we do in a nutshell. That's a really short explanation of HKNC. Our mission is giving people who are deafblind the tools to live, work, and thrive in the community of their choice. That's the mission for HKNC. And HKNC has services in a wide variety of areas. It would take a long time for me to explain all the different services and where we provide them. But if you would like, I'd encourage you to look at www.hknc.org, and you can see the number of services that we offer. And again, all things are to support our mission of giving the tools to deafblind people to live and thrive and work in the community of their choice. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
This is Joe. Thank you. That was really interesting, and now I have to change a few questions on the fly because I already have learned something from your presentation. I would like to invite the other panelists to join us now. So first, Gloria, please turn on your video As I did at the beginning, to make this more accessible, if you could describe yourself and then tell us your name, your company, and what you do there.
Sure. Hello, and thank you for the honor and the privilege to join you all today on this very important topic. My name is Gloria Puentes, Director of Global Diversity and Inclusion with Sodexo. I am a young, spirited, and high-energy baby boomer who stands a tall 5 feet 2 inches with dark hair that falls around just below my ears. And today I am wearing a black sweater with a red and white collar that loops down. But more importantly, today I am wearing a big smile because I get to be here with you.
This is Joe. That was excellent. Thank you, Gloria. Layla, I would like to invite you to turn on your video, and the same way, please describe yourself, who you are, and your company.
I don't have such a great description of self. However, I'm a woman, olive skin, dark long hair. I have fairly large eyes. I can scare anyone at night. And I also am wearing a colorful shirt with what would be considered a half-done tie. And it's nice to be here.
Thank you, Layla. This is Joe. Thank you, Layla. Also, as you're beginning to speak, if you could say your name, that would be very helpful for the signers. Lucas, I would like to invite you to turn on your video and describe yourself and your company and what you do there.
Hello, Joe. Thank you so much. This is Lucas, and thank you for having me here. It is really a pleasure. I'm really excited to be here with you all. Thank you for all of you who are here with us. I think it's going to be a great conversation. And in order to describe myself physically, I'm Latino of light brown skin. I wear glasses, I have short hair, and I'm wearing a black suit with a burgundy pattern shirt. I didn't know I had to say my age, but since Joe said his, I'm in my 30s. Let's leave it there. And also there is a small logo here. It's a small colorful chameleon. It's the logo of my company, My New Language. I'm the CEO of that company, and we provide interpreting services, also translation and co-navigation services. And we can talk a little bit more about that later.
This is Joe. Thank you, Lucas. So to kick off this panel, I would like to ask, what is the process of Helen Keller National Center to place someone in the workplace?
If I can take a kick at that, this is Layla speaking. So to have a candidate successfully placed or to find them employment, we work or collaborate with different state agencies. And one of the agencies that we work with the most is California Department of Rehab. And I'm only speaking here for California, but however, we do that in all 50 states. So we do collaborate with them. We get a referral. And when a candidate is ready for employment, we provide also those types of services. We do resume building, we do interview skills, whatever it is the person needs in order to be a good candidate for the workforce is what we do. As well as, and Chris can also add that at Helen Keller National Center, its headquarters in New York, we also provide training as well, where they can live in one of the residences there for X amount of time for them to get skills such as mobility skills, how to work with a cane, how to work independently, how to cook their own meals. And all that kind of entails a work readiness. So we focus on the entire person so that they will have the skills not only to work, but also to live independently.
This is Joe. Thank you. You know, this is
actually, if I can jump in, this is Chris.
Yes.
If I can add to that.
Yes.
Again, this is Chris speaking. Layla, yes, thank you for that that transition, specifically about the services for Helen Keller. Our philosophy really, encompasses several different perspectives. We take a whole adult approach. We focus heavily on peer learning, on a person-centered approach. And all of those different philosophies kind of come together into the marriage of a transitional workforce approach. Of course, we don't work with people in silos. It's not just about communication. It's not just about work readiness. It's not just about living independently. We really try to marry all aspects of those philosophies into one effective program. Now, there are a few things that that Helen Keller has not been able to provide due to COVID. We are really looking forward to this pandemic kind of reaching its end. We're hoping in the not too distant future, so that we can continue providing lots of the services that have been on hiatus since COVID has been in our lives. We do, as Layla mentioned, we do have several dormitories and apartments that we have set up, and we set them up in a way that mimics what deafblind individuals are going to see in real life. We try to make those environments as authentic as possible. In the center itself, we can provide trainings for literally anything you can think of. Any kind of employment goal can be satisfied at Helen Keller National Center. We and as Layla mentioned, we do work closely with California Voc Rehab as well as other states. We will even reach out to families, children of deafblind people, making sure that everyone is on the same page and there is a commitment to alleviating the struggles that deafblind people will have in all aspects of their life. There are really, honestly, more services than we can possibly even mention in multiple areas, not only at Helen Keller Center, but as Layla was mentioning, out and around in New York and California.
This is Joe. Thank you so much. And now I would actually like to invite Gloria to tell us the other side of the coin, what your experience was working with the Helen Keller Center, and anything you'd like to share about Kevin and who you had hired.
Sure. This is Gloria speaking, the one with the big smile. Happy to be here today. And so as I mentioned in my introduction that I represent Sodexo. And for those of you not familiar with Sodexo, we are a global company. We are in 67 countries around the globe. And we are in all 50 states here in the United States. We are an integrated provider of food services and facilities management. So you find Sodexo in hospitals, in senior living facilities, in colleges and universities, in K through 12, in government services, where I'm going to share a story about someone who we recently hired from Helen Keller National Center. And we are also in convention centers as well as stadiums, athletic stadiums, and at zoos and museums and aquariums. And so as you can see, we are in many different types of corporate buildings and, just everywhere. And so we need a lot of employees. And the key about Sodexo is that Sodexo is, for over 20 years, we have been on a diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. And what that means is that we are really about having our workforce be reflective of the world that we live in. And so it is important that we partner with organizations like the Helen Keller National Center and like the vocational rehab agencies. We work with many other groups as well, those who really serve all diverse communities, be it any ethnic community, be it work eligible refugees. So it's all different types of organizations. And those organizations that we work with here in the United States are national organizations in scope, but who have a local reach. So it was interesting that Joseph Malello, who you know well, Chris, really reached out to me about a year and a half ago. And we were working, and I said, you know what, Joe, let's start out small, and let me just work with you in 2 cities. Let's start off with working in 2 cities. And we picked the Pennsylvania area and the New Jersey, New York area. And we had some opportunities, but our big push came earlier this year, even after COVID, in the COVID period, but he introduced me to NET, which is a part of Vocational Rehab Agency. And that is where we were introduced to all vocational rehab agencies in all 50 states. So I did an introduction call with all 50 states, and then those who were interested then reached out further and state by state, and they connected me to folks who really wanted to. And that's for Layla, and got wind of an opportunity in San Diego. We have many of the military bases there on the West Coast, and so really around the country. But so they were looking for a cook, a lead cook. And so Layla introduced us to Kevin Tong, and he has now been with Sodexo for several months. And in fact, within several months, and this rarely happens, but he has already been promoted once and moved to the biggest mess hall in the San Diego area. And so we are so excited, and Layla has done a tremendous job in getting so much press on him. And he's excited, leadership at Sodexo is excited. So what we're really excited about with the Sodexo Workforce Initiative is that we are connecting with organizations and really making a difference in the lives of so many folks. And what's wonderful is that it's a win for everybody. It's a win for Sodexo. It's a win for VRA and Helen Keller National Center. And most importantly, it's a win for those that we employ, because it makes them feel valued and welcomed. And, you know, we focus a lot on creating an inclusive workplace for all. And we really want to build that, that we want them to know that Sodexo is a place where they truly belong. And so we work at that. And it's not just the Office of Diversity's responsibility, nor is it just the leader's responsibility. It's every individual's responsibility to create that culture for us.
This is Joe. Thank you, Gloria. I love this story. And I'll be honest, I really want to taste Kevin's cooking once COVID is over. Hopefully we'll be able to make that happen, perhaps as an appetizer to a future webinar.
Right? That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Now, Lucas, I'd like to invite you to speak as well, because we're going through how this process happens, and an organization such as yourself would be another partner to this process. And in particular, I'd love for you to speak to how a boutique service such as yourself, as opposed to perhaps some of the larger agencies, what the difference is and how you approach this.
Sure, this is Lucas, and thank you, Joe, for having me here again. First of all, I want to say that in whatever I'm going to be sharing today, I'm not representing the deaf community in any way, or the deaf-blind community, although I'm a close friend to them. I know that belongs solely to them. So I'm speaking from the perspective of a vendor of services, right? So yes, in working with Wendy, let's say, because since she's here, I'm sure she'll be okay if I speak a little bit to our relationship and the example of Kevin. Oftentimes, deaf-blind individuals need very specific accommodations, and the larger companies are not able to provide those. They're not acquainted with what those are, and they're not acquainted with the community. And as Chris mentioned, no deaf-blind is the same as another, right? So we need to work closely with, the employer needs to work closely with the vendor to find out what are the needs of this individual and the vendor. Does the vendor have the capability? Does the vendor have the know-how? And I think that's why these smaller boutique vendors need to be reached out to. And I'm not saying this only because it would be self-serving, right? I want to put it out there for every employer to know that in your states, in your cities, if you are in this process of having a deaf-blind individual being interviewed or being in the process of hiring or training, to look for the smaller vendors. And the smaller vendors can provide flexibility. Oftentimes, because the employer is not aware of what's going to be needed, last-minute changes are required. So a smaller vendor can do that. Also, a smaller vendor is not as worried with the larger profit margins because they work with the community. They want to serve the community. They're close to them. They want to make sure that these individuals get the right service that they need. Also, I want to say that, I forgot your name, Gloria. As Gloria mentioned, this is a win-win for everyone. Deaf-blind individuals bring a lot to the table, and perhaps we can talk a little bit more about it. I don't want to take the time too much, but I think those are a few of the reasons why it's a good idea to find vendors who are smaller, who know the community, and who can provide flexibility.
This is Joe. Thank you, Lucas. I have so many questions I'm dying to know the answers to, and that are exciting to me. Today, I found out that there is a sign name. What is a sign name, and how do you get one? And I'm sorry, I don't have one yet. Anybody have the answer to that? Chris.
Yes, this is Chris speaking. So how a person gets a sign named is really, maybe if your family can hear, and my family could hear, and I started learning sign language when I was about 2 years old. And at that time I went to school, and the teacher gave me the sign name of C on my chest or on my left side. And all of my brothers and sisters, I come from a large family in Wisconsin, a very rural area. We had a large farm, and all of them had their sign names in the same area as mine. And then later I went to the Wisconsin School for the Deaf, starting at 5th grade. There were 5 boys who were all named Chris, and all of them had the same sign name, the same place, C on the left chest. So what do you do with that? So then they added my last initial to the C after that to identify me differently from the different boys who were named Chris. So it became CW. And that's what it's been so far. I mean, it's always been that way. I'm known as CW on my chest. Sometimes you think about changing your sign name, changing the CW. but because it was given to me by a hearing person, you know, it doesn't technically follow the rules, but really it is my sign name, and that's what I use now.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay with that.
And this is Layla, if I can add also, as a person, a hearing person who received a name sign, because it comes from the deaf community, they're the only ones who have that right, you know, to give you that sign name. It was a journey for me because I have such a sign name kind of revolves around a characteristic of yours, something unique to you. So it takes time for them to develop a sign name for you. So for me, it started out as here on the dimple, because they said, you know, the girl with the dimple. So it was a sign around here. Then it moved over to my eyes. They said, you know, she always wears eyeliner. Let's give her a sign name here around the eyes. And then it turned out that someone else had the same name sign, just like it happened with Chris. So then they developed a new one for me. So now it is almost like beautiful eye, but just this part. So I always call myself the 1/4 eye beauty, because if you were to look at it in sign language, that's pretty much what it basically means, like a beautiful eye. So name signs are very unique to each person, just like Lucas's is here on the mole that he has. So it's very unique, and it takes time to develop a name sign. But once you have it, that's your name.
And if I may interject, this is Lucas here. I do want to say that lately I've been, well, for the past few months, I've been taking additional workshops with the deaf-blind community in something that is called pro-tactile. It's a whole new philosophy that it's taking on. And in relation to sign names for the deaf-blind, actually they want you to make up your own sign, which is different from the deaf community. It is something that we ask, why is this that you want us to decide what our sign names are? And they said, well, it has to be something that it's physical, it has to be related to touch. There's certain rules that you need to follow. But they say, who knows you better than yourself, right? So you know what you look like, you know if you're hairy, let's say, if you have long hair, what are the things that people remember you about, those sensory things? And they allow you to come up with your sign name. So that's for the deaf-blind community. With the deaf community, as it was mentioned, yes, it needs to be given by a deaf person.
Thank you, Lucas.
And this is Chris. I agree with that.
Thank you. This is Joanna. Thank you, everyone. Actually, that was fascinating, and we should do a webinar on sign names alone. I think we can.
Yeah, I think so.
Fill an hour. Gloria, I'm impressed with Sodexo's commitment to inclusion, and I'm curious if you can speak to what the company has done in order to provide a good inclusive environment. I know often people with disabilities may decide to self-disclose their disability and might need some support or certain services. And how does that work at Sodexo? And whatever you can speak to, I care more about what motivated the company to pay attention to it rather than, you know what I mean?
Sure. So, like I said, when we've been on a diversity, equity, and inclusion journey for a number of years, and we look at all dimensions of diversity, and disabilities is one of the 5 global dimensions that we have. And so I'd like to quickly talk about 3 different things that we've done. One, we had partnered with a national organization for a number of years that helped us with, the different surveys that they did to help us get on that journey of how do we really create that inclusive culture for individuals with disabilities. So we did accommodations training, and we were doing that out in our operations, and as well as to all hiring managers who we could. And that was earlier in the years that when we started the diversity and inclusion journey. And then as once we got through the accommodations training and getting people made aware of all of the different types of things like that. Then we also included we have 9 employee business resource groups, and employee business resource groups really are a grassroots. Some of our employees get together and talk about some of the areas that they would like. And so we have one of our employee business resource groups focuses on individuals with disabilities. You don't have to be an individual with a disability to be a part of that employee resource group, which is known by the name of SOAR, but rather an ally, and that maybe you have someone on your team who is an individual with a disability, and you just want to be an ally and make sure that you're aware of any new information that you can get to help your employee. And then most recently, we have had our employee self-identify initiative, because as we are currently working, since we launched the Sodexo Workforce Initiative 4 years ago, those employees who are coming into operations, if they're coming through one of the agencies, then people just know. Sometimes they would disclose what their disability is, others may not. And, we encourage them to, but they don't have to. And so even for those employees who have been with us for some time, and maybe, their disability happened after they were employed, if they choose to disclose, we encourage them to disclose, not because it's going to have a negative impact on them, but rather we want to make sure, again, in creating an inclusive workplace where everyone belongs, we want to make sure we're accommodating their needs.
This is Joe. Thank you, Gloria. I like the SOAR name. Chris, I'll pass it to you in one moment. I love the SOAR name because we have a State of Accessibility report, which we call SOAR as well. So I love the similar thinking there.
Yes, yes. Yeah. It's a great organization.
Yeah. Chris?
Yes, thank you. This is Chris speaking. I do want to thank Gloria for a very positive perspective on self-disclosure and recognition. Over the years, for the deaf and blind community, I'm a member of both communities, and we have the same discussions. Do you need to self-identify or not say anything? So it's kind of an interesting discussion. There's a lot of concerns in both communities that if we disclose that we are deaf or deaf-blind, and when they see our resume, they'll just toss it in the garbage and they won't consider even interviewing us, and then move on to the next person. We won't be called for an interview, and so on and so forth. So there are some concerns with that. So people may keep that quiet until the day of the interview and then say, oh, yes, I'm deaf, or I'm deaf-blind, and I'm going to need these resources. And then it's kind of a shock. And then, from the workplace perspective, they're like, oh, you didn't tell us, should have told us ahead of time so we would know. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But over the past few years, in general, in a lot of companies, and inclusive companies like Sodexo, and there are other companies who are very inclusive like Sodexo, I've started to see that there's a more positive perspective to having disabilities in the workforce and in the workplace. So I think there's been a paradigm shift between to disclose or not disclose. Now, a little bit different perspective has time. So I've been working for over 24 years in different jobs, always either in the deaf or deaf-blind community, though. I have not had a job outside of a job inside the deaf or deafblind world. And I disclose all the time because that is definitely a benefit for me for working in a deaf organization. They want more deaf workers there, of course. If I'm working in a deaf-blind organization, they want people who are deaf-blind in their workforce. So its disclosure is not even a question for me. It's seen as a positive. So it's really, I think about where I worked and then I would always disclose. So I just want to throw that out there. It is a big discussion in both communities though, to disclose or not disclose and how will that impact your possible chances of getting a job.
And if I can add something as well, this is Leila speaking. So at Helen Keller National Center, when we find companies who are embracing inclusion and diversity, then those are the companies that our National Business Director, Joe Melillo, who knows Gloria, will reach out to those companies. So we're looking for organizations, companies who already have this philosophy, who already embrace it, because it makes it easier to partner with them and then bring about a talent pool of deafblind individuals into that company, such as with Kevin Tong here in San Diego. It was such a smooth transition, whereas if perhaps they were not our partners, it would have been it would have taken longer. But with having Sedesco as our partner, it made it so much easier to bring in Kevin Tong, and whatever resources he needed, accommodations, everything was taken care of either by HKNC or by the Department of Rehab with the support, of course, of Sedesco.
This is Joe.
And I would just like to make one comment. This is Gloria, that I don't want to mislead anyone on this call, because I don't want to make it sound like everything runs smoothly and perfectly. Because not everyone, even though that is what we are striving for, right, is for everyone in Sodexo to be that welcoming. But I will share with you, I had a recruiter called me the other day in tears because the location she was recruiting for, the manager said, "What? Someone who's got visually impaired? How could he be a strong custodian here? We need people who are going to help keep this place clean, blah, 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 blah." Well, she was in tears. She goes, "Gloria, how can I work with this gentleman? What type of feedback can I give to this hiring manager?" And what I do in those situations is I connect them with colleagues who have hired individuals who are visually impaired or any other type of disability, so that they can receive positive testimonials from others. Because I have had over the 4 years that we've launched this initiative, we have had those who have been hesitant to hire. And so they will bring on one employee at a time. And in some locations, they stay to 1 or 2 employees, and others just keep going back to the agency and saying, "Okay, send me more, send me more, send me more." So, it's not perfect all the time. But we do strive for that.
This is Joe.
And Joe,
Yes.
go ahead. Sorry, I don't know if you want to move on to a different subject, but I have something else about this topic. I think it's a very hot topic. I do want to say that in passing the other day, this is Lucas speaking. I was talking with a deafblind colleague, and we were talking about job opportunities. And she said, I asked her, how has it been for you? She said when she was younger, she would show up for an interview. She would never disclose. She would show up for an interview, and the first few times she would bring her cane. Many of you know deafblind individuals use a white and red cane. And that signals like this person has a disability, right? And she said like people ran from being there. Like they were so scared. They're like, I don't know how to deal with this person. I don't know if this person has the skills we need. And they would shut them down and they would never get a call back. I think that's very sad because oftentimes they are not given the opportunity to show first that they have the abilities, the skills needed for the position, which oftentimes they do, but also the fact that they are missing out, the employers. In working with blind individuals, I've noticed that these are loyal people. Like when they find a place where they're accepted, where they're understood, and where they have the needs in order their needs met, they work perfectly fine. They're gonna give them their trust, their allegiance, they're gonna be there for them. So they're missing out. Also, deaf-blind individuals are outside the box thinkers, right? And we know that's the cradle of innovation, right? We need people like that. So they're missing out in so many different ways for not giving these people an opportunity. And that's something I wanna put out there to the employers, give them an opportunity. If you don't know what you need to do, ask them. What do you need from me to make this happen, for me to get to know you, to understand you, to see if you actually have the qualifications? And I think this is a good reminder for all, because there are many people there who are trying to get into the workplace, and yeah, sadly, they're not able to.
This is Joe. Thank you, Lucas. The Q&A is getting very lively, and this topic has really resonated with folks. So I'm going to go off of my script of questions and just go to the Q&A a little bit. I'd also like to mention that we will be sending out the recording post-webinar, so don't worry about that. Let's see, we've got Megan is asking Gloria, how do you ensure that people who self-identify aren't discriminated against on the micro level?
You know, again, Sodexo is, and it shows in our employee surveys that people really value diversity, equity, and inclusion within the company. And more people are saying they're coming to Sodexo because of, you know, at Sodexo, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just window dressing as seen in so many companies. It is truly a part of the organization. We have employee hotlines if someone feels that they're being discriminated in any way, or if they're, you know, whatever it is, and it's private. So, you know, it's not, we hope that it's not getting back and retaliated, they're being retaliated against. And certainly we do value, you know, we want to hear, we encourage people to use the people hotline, the employee hotline, to disclose anything like that.
This is Joe, thank you. I'm just going to zip through this if we can keep it a little bit short so that we can get more topics in. How can companies help feel more comfortable self-identifying as someone with any type of disability? This is for anyone, by the way.
And this is Layla. How can the companies feel more comfortable was the question, just to clarify?
This is Joe, sorry. How can companies help people feel more comfortable self-identifying with any type of disability?
So if I can speak to that, and then Chris, of course, can also add as a deaf-blind person. I find that companies such as Sodexo, who we already established a partnership with on a national level, makes it so much easier for candidates to self-disclose. So I believe in companies partnering up with different vendors or companies such as Helen Keller, even with the State Department of Rehab as well, just making that partnership known encourages candidates to be more at ease and to self-disclose. So when we see that the company is taking a step towards inclusion and diversity, it gives them the power or the willingness to self-disclose. So I think looking into who you partner with, definitely on a national level, is a big thing.
This is Joe. Thank you, Layla. Gosh, let's go to this question from Mackenzie. This is really a two-part question. Part is, can you please talk about best communicating through touch with pro-tactile with deafblind individuals during times of COVID and social distancing, and also how to best work as co-navigators being safe with COVID. And I apologize asking to keep it short, but I just love this topic and there's so many more questions to come. So if anybody wants to take that, I'd love to hear that, as well as an explanation of co-navigators. And I think Lucas, you probably want to take this, or Chris, either way.
Yeah, this is Chris. Hang on one moment. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Hang on one moment. I believe Chris is saying, Lucas, if you want to go ahead and field this.
Sure. This is Lucas. No problem. Thank you. First of all, I want to say that, and I want to acknowledge that, well, we all know that 2020 has been crazy for everyone, right? However, for deafblind community, it's been very, very hard. Since they rely on touch to communicate, they've had a lot of lack of social interaction. They haven't been able to be out with their family, with their friends. They haven't been able to have access to so many things. That said, co-navigators and interpreters are essential workers, right? And I think it's been amazing seeing that many of them had continued to work throughout this pandemic. It hasn't been easy. Not everybody has continued to work. So I applaud those who have, and I'm very appreciative to them, as well as the deaf and deafblind communities. It hasn't been easy because they need to make sure they follow the protocols. Oftentimes, a mask is not enough. They need to wear a face shield, let's say. Oftentimes, the deaf or deafblind individuals want to see the movements of the mouth, so they need to take out their mask, so they need to be at a certain distance in order for them to do that, right? To stay at a safe distance. However, they're continuing to do so and continuing to follow the CDC's guidelines for that. A co-navigator, what is that? Many people may be wondering. It is what they used to call an SSP, a support service provider for the deafblind. However, it is, but it's not, because how they work and the relationship this person who provides the service has with the deafblind person is very different. In the past, and many deafblind individuals complained about this, that they felt oppressed in a sense, that they will lead all the time. They felt managed all the time. So it's different now with the co-navigators. They're co-present with them. They're navigating the work to get the workplace, the world, and any social interaction together. And these people, the service providers support like social events. They're there with the deafblind. They go to medical appointments. They do sighted guidance, which is like they drive them around to their different locations, appointments, and things where they need to go. But they are not like care assistants, right? They're not counselors. They're not there for that. They're just there to make sure that deafblind individuals have accessibility. It's been very hard to continue to have them available during this time, but we're continuing to provide them, and we continue to have people who are willing to do that, and we're very appreciative to them.
This is Joe. Thank you, Lucas. Chris, I will let you add something to it, but also ask you a question as well. Specifically, what are your thoughts on there's these auto captioning services that censor content? So I'd love to hear your perspective on that as well.
Hang on one moment for the interpreter.
Yes.
So Chris's video is freezing. Hang on one moment. So this is Chris. Helen Keller National Center continues to work to provide these services even despite the pandemic. Most of our clients do require some level of touch in order to communicate. And we have our own protocols in place for working with those specific clients. We want to make sure that all of our employees and all of our clients are as safe as possible. But we want to continue providing these services because we know how valuable they are. We're still providing tactile communication, pro-tactile communication. All of those services are still available. And yes, it is safe. We do have protocols in place for safety to be our priority. So I do want to make sure to emphasize that to all of the people out there. And Joe, this is the interpreter speaking. We missed the second part of the question. Would you mind repeating?
This is Joe. Yes, the second part was there are auto captioning services that bleep out, that censor curse words. And I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on these services, because there might be developers listening or product people that think that this is how auto captioning should work. And it is a difficult problem.
This is Chris. Yes, thanks for bringing that up. It's a very, very important question, especially now. It's actually one of my pet peeves to experience censorship in that way. So I appreciate the question. Our perspective is that if a hearing person has the opportunity and ability to hear a word, a deaf or deafblind person should be able to also experience that word. Every time we deal with captioning that either censors or produces some sort of unclear message, maybe that it's garbled, that is a communication barrier. So our perspective is that unless you as hearing people want to go through the world with words being censored and having unclear messages, then that's not equitable for deaf or deafblind community members.
Thank you so much. It's a pet peeve of mine as well. And I try to really look at people's perspective. And I imagine the people building the product are saying, well, what happens if somebody says, oh, shoot. And we're, let's say 80% sure that that word had an I in it. Do we, how careful are we about that? So I do understand that it can be a little bit difficult sometimes for the product people to make those calls. But at the same time, it's important to not lock out people that are depending upon the captions. So thank you for your perspective.
And this is Wendy, this is Layla, if I can just add that it's funny because it's also part of the ASL vernacular as well. Those words that we think are, foul words, or words like you said, oh shoot, with the I instead. Those are words that are used within the deaf community and deafblind community as well. There's signs for them. So I don't believe that omitting them or filtering is necessary. Just if you can hear it, put it out there so that they can also see it or they can feel it.
This is Joe. Thank you. And just to maybe be a little bit non-politically correct, there's some great videos out there of CeeLo Green's work where you have an ASL interpreter that really, you're not getting censored. You get to see everything, and it's awesome, hilarious, and fun to watch. So try and find those videos. I could go on for 2 hours and I don't think it would be boring, but unfortunately it's already 11 o'clock and we've run out of time. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Hopefully we'll do this again sometime. We will be sharing information with people. We'll have a follow-up post. This recording will be probably on YouTube. And don't consider this the end of the webinar, but the beginning of a connection with all these wonderful people. So I thank all of you and see you at the next webinar.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to everyone from Chris.